Hey, these these are the evil Airy switches from Alum KB and are manufactured by the Panda Factory. These are a tactile switch with an actuation at 45 grams and a bottom out at 67 grams. The switch is a 3-pin switch, also known as a plate mount switch, made from a polycarb top housing, a nylon bottom housing, palm stem, and uses a Korea spring. I have no idea what that means, but from what I saw inside the switch, it's just a non-gold plated spring. These switches were in a group buy phase around late September of 2020 and ended within the first or second week of October that same year. The switches arrived late January, and one thing I noticed when taking them out of the bag was the amount of pins that were bent. It wasn't like a shit ton, but it was enough to notice and be annoyed by. But anyways, I tried the switches out and I was honestly impressed. I completely forgot to say this, but for the sound test, the GK61, I added some foam at the bottom of the case. And I'm also going to compare the lubed version of these switches with the Monster Gear. So please let me know which sound test you prefer, the Monster Gear or the GK61 with the foam added. Alright, back to the video. Back to the video. The switches felt great in my opinion. There is some scratchiness from both the sound and feel of the switch, but it didn't bother me at all. The switch did have leaf spring ping, but they are unnoticeable when typing. Switches also didn't have any spring ping when typing, which I was surprised by. The tactility of the switches, I would say, are fairly tactile, fairly similar to the Holy Pandas, I would say. From what I saw on their website, I saw a picture of the switches next to a Holy Panda switch, so I can only assume that they were trying to get a similar feel to them. But I would also have to say that these switches aren't the most tactile switch out there, compared to switches like the Kiwis, Dark Jade Everglides, or Zelios. These are more of a middle ground of tactility, with Zelios being the most tactile, and the Cherry Browns being the least tactile. So the evil areas will be like in the middle. I really enjoyed the stock feeling of these switches, so I was worried that lubing the switches would make the switch lose some of that tactility, but I still continued. I opened up the switches to get ready to lube them up, and I had noticed there was some sort of coating on the springs. There was no coating of lube of any sort on any part of the switch like the housing or stem, but this made me realize that the springs they put into the switches were pre-coated with some sort of lube to prevent any spring pinging. So that made more sense to me. From the switches that I lubed, I had noticed one of the stems had some grayish brown stains on it. I had no idea what it was. I just assumed that it was something from the molding of the stem or something like that. After rubbing it with some alcohol and paper towel, it just came off, so nothing to worry about. So how are the lubed versions of these switches? Well, they feel a lot more smoother. Scratchiness from the housing is now gone. The sound of the switches are now more deeper than they were stock, that being that I lubed them and used some Desky films. There is still some leaf spring ping, but that's just because they are a tactile switch, so yeah. What I can say though is that the lube version of these switches did lose a bit of the tactility since lube was added, but it is a more refined tactility now. What I mean is, it doesn't feel scratchy when typing, and the sound of the switch is more clear to hear with the switch housing sounding less scratchy and hollow. So would I recommend these switches? These are a good tactile switch. Like for me at least, tactile switches can get very tiring to type on after a while, but the Evil Airy / Miami switches, I feel like I could type on these switches for a long time. One thing I have to say about these switches is that they are a 3-pin. I mean, nothing wrong with okay, never mind. There's a bit of things wrong with it. One thing I would say is 3-pin switches are a bit annoying to work with when it comes to soldering them, since they have less stability to their housing and staying in the PCB without those 2 extra pins, but it's still doable. It's just a bit more annoying to work with. Since these switches are a group buy, it is very unlikely you'll find these switches being sold anywhere besides Mech Market or on aftermarket listings. If you are someone who wants a really tactile switch, go for another switch such as the Kiwis from the Key Company, or the Dark Jade Black tactiles from Everglide, or even the Koala switches. I don't recommend Zelio switches purely because of the price that they are sold for. They are way too expensive for a switch in my opinion, but if you are financially stable or flourishing, sure, go for them instead. If you're someone who wants a lighter tactile, these might be a better option to choose from. These switches do have a P tactility, which means they have a smaller but sharper bump with extra travel to bottom out, similar to Holy Pandas and Kiwis, compared to a switch with a D bump, which is a more rounded out tactile like Koalas and Dark Jade Black. So overall, the Evil Miami switches are a nice tactile that comes fairly close, in my opinion, to the Holy Panda switch feel. They have a nice tactility and a nice sound to the switch that makes typing on them not tiring and enjoyable. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. I also have other keyboard reviews / content on this channel. If you like that content as well, hit that subscribe button. I also have a Twitch. I stream Wednesdays and Fridays at 10 to 11 p.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/smilingdown. Here's a clip of some of the things that I do over there. Is it working? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.